they put it through their machine, they crank it up, and in 90 minutes we have their DNA profile. I mean, it might be fast, but it's not necessarily as easy as that. And at this point, we still have we have a backlog, hundreds of thousands of samples. They await being put through these machines, the DNA. And we can talk a little bit more about DNA later. It's such an important part of forensics. We really would have to. But anyway, they were still waiting for hundreds of thousands, and there are many more coming every day for us to analyze. But we do put them in the database so that people who have done crimes, they can be identified, they can be related to the people and get the name and relate the DNA found at the crime scene to a name of someone we have in the database. It's not just this country, England also has it, and just to show how useful it is, they actually, in 320,000 investigations, they've used these matches. So that shows how useful it is. It's used 320,000 times. That's very impressive. There are other databases, not just the main ones for the fingerprints and for DNA. The NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, that relates bullets to guns. I suppose people who own the guns. Every bullet that's fired has its own sort of like a fingerprint striation pattern. Has to do with the scratches that are found inside barrels of guns. So the bullet can be connected to the gun. And this is a database that has a whole bunch of bullets that are on file. As it turns out, it cannot identify the exact bullet of the exact gun, but it'll narrow it down to several ones. And the rest of it has to be done by eye. If it narrows it down to 10 of them, then you have to go through all 10, see if it actually matches. But the point is, it's there. And it can be used, and it is a useful tool in identifying the bullet found at a crime scene to the person who owns the gun who shot that bullet. There's also the International Forensic Automatic Paint Data Query, the PDQ. That's what most people call it, Paint Data Query. Well, different kinds of paint and where they came from. So very often in crimes that involve vehicles, and come on, who doesn't take a car to drive anywhere these days? You only do. I mean, how many crimes occur, in your neighborhood, where you just walk by and do the crime and then walk away, or you use a bicycle? I mean, everyone uses cars to go, so you can imagine how cars are involved in crime. So if you can actually get the paint from the car, you can match it up to the PDQ, the Paint Data Query, and find out the make, the model, and maybe even the owner, depending on how much information you can get from it. There's the CCAR, the Shoe Print Image Capture and Retrieval. I mean, for those who don't drive cars, I'm sure they walk. So if you can find their footprints, you can match it up to this database and at least identify the kind of shoe. And sometimes the kind of shoe is extremely rare and expensive. In that case, you might narrow this thing down to one or two people. This was actually not used in what used to be it was famous, the O.J. Simpson trial. It was too late for them to use the shoe print, but we can talk about that later. This is a commercial product. It's not made by the government or anything like that. Anyway, there's also NamUs. This is the National Missing and Unidentified Person System that they found dead bodies, and they show and they tell their identifying marks. So if you're missing somebody, you might be able to tell who you are missing. This is also a way you might match it to the person who's dead. So this is another database that's used. So to summarize, we talked about the types of evidence to be collected, and it's not complete because even off the top of the bat, I can probably think of something. What about a mark on a wall? Let's say a black mark on a wall. We didn't mention that. Where did that come from? Is it come from shoe polish? I don't know. I mean, there are many different kinds of evidence, and a lot of it depends on the cultures and the type of people that there are. This is one reason why people who live in a small town that might know things about each other, they are probably best capable of analyzing what is evidence and what's not, because they know the kind of the culture of the small town. But anyway, we do see that many different kinds of evidence. It does require someone with experience. How to deal with the evidence, to identify it, find where it came from, compare it to other things. Let's say something on a suspect, compare that to something found in the crime scene. Their individual and class characteristics, and also how probabilities work, especially with class characteristics. And understanding that not all evidence, just because it's called evidence, just because someone really sciencey talks about it, doesn't mean that it is definitely evidence and that it proves the case that they're making. That the man also should know about the automated databases, these databases where they're computerized and you can figure out, you can match something that's known in the database to something that's found on the crime scene. Finally, for those who have the book and who want to do the homework problems, these are the ones that are assigned.